Professor Aled Jones, Director of the Global Sustainability Institute at Anglia Ruskin University. So I'm one of the commissioners on the Essex Climate Action Commission. I've been playing more about a general role, looking and reviewing and providing some of the external sort of challenge to the ambition of the Commission's recommendations. Important because of the scale of change that we'll be seeing in the UK and internationally around climate action over the next few years and decades to come. So for somewhere like Essex to really grasp that and try to lead it should lead to huge opportunities for Essex and its residents and businesses in terms of growth and jobs. To be a laggard in here and to wait for things to happen, we miss a huge amount of opportunity. I think the impact of lockdown obviously has been very profound, and I think the main thing that we should be using lockdown to look at is actually the impact of this sort of huge change on inequality and access. So lockdowns obviously had a huge and disproportionate impact on different parts of society, especially those in some of the lower socioeconomic groups. And so I think when we look at how we transition, how we make the most of opportunities from climate change, we need to be more cognizant and think a bit about how these impacts will be spread across society, so we don't disproportionately load them onto one part of society as we have done in lockdown. At the level of ambition, so taking action on climate change actually unlocks a huge amount of opportunity, a lot of innovation and lots of new jobs, development of green skills. So I think the key thing there is to be really clear about the scale of investment that is going to be made and where that investment is going to come, both in terms of government policy, sort of pointing the direction in what the world will look like in 20 years' time, and the financial institution showing us partly the risk of not doing it, but also the opportunity that they see in making those investments. So it's really clear why we're doing it and the sort of opportunity that we're unlocking. Food has a very interesting and complex relationship with climate change. Obviously, extreme weather can hugely disrupt food supply chains. So we've looked at scenarios a sort of 1 year out where we've had major droughts or major floods in some of the big food producing areas in the world, like the US or in Australia or the Ukraine. So we can already see disruptions to food supply chains. It has at the moment a less direct impact on the UK because we have been able to purchase food internationally on the markets when we've needed it. But it does mean that things like wheat have become much more expensive. There were events over the last 10 years where wheat became 5 times more expensive within a matter of months. So what we need to be able to do is make sure those international supply chains, and as we leave the European Union and become more reliant on other international supply chains, will be even more exposed to these big climate disruptions. So it's really thinking about our food supply chain and making sure that's as resilient as possible, as well as being aware that there will be huge disruptions to that supply chain in the future, whether that's next year or it will just become increasingly prevalent over the years coming. So we'll expect more of these sorts of disruptions. Locally, we will then also see disruptions to UK supply as we see floods and droughts impacting either, in the winter where ground becomes too wet to plant, or in the summer where you'll get increasing droughts. That's over a slightly longer time frame when we'll see those impacts really kicking in over the next decade or so. But as people are planning farming and land management now, they have to take this into account. So we need to be thinking about it now. Some of that international disruption will happen this year, next year, and continue and get more severe. Some of the local UK disruption will be a few years out. I'm a cosmologist by background. The link is essentially mathematics. My training is in, well, theoretical physics and mathematics. I was interested in doing cosmology, which was all around the use of mathematics to understand where the universe comes from. And then I wanted to apply that maths into something slightly more practical with urgency and climate change. A lot of it, especially understanding food security and supply chains and financial flows, it's all mathematics.